So I went to the Planning Commission meeting to find out if the amendment is going to be recommended to City Hall. And what I found out is this was a very, very long meeting. It was 12 hours long. Staff first gave kind of the updates to the amendment, and then we had lots and lots and lots of comments, and then there was a vote. Fortunately, this was recorded, and I'm going to show the recordings and just give a breakdown of some of the aspects. I'm not going to obviously show the whole 12 hours, but I wanted to give some cliff notes to give you an idea of how city staff and people who are commenting on it, what their feelings were on all of this. So one of the things at first when they did is staff kind of gave an update to the home amendment, and there were some small subtle changes that they're going to share, and I had a chance to speak with this person earlier in one of my previous videos, and so here's what she had to say now.
The proposed code amendments before you tonight would do the following things. They would allow up to 3 homes on properties zoned SF1, SF2, and SF3. They would simplify some of the existing regulations for building 2 homes. They would remove duplicative accessory apartment, guest house, and on-site worker home provisions that are in the code today. They would limit the applicability of the residential design and compatibility standards, or McMansion standards, to lots with 1 home. They would allow tiny homes that meet certain standards to be considered a dwelling unit. And they would remove the limitation on the number of unrelated adults allowed to live together. The Planning Commission received a full briefing on the proposed amendments during your joint meeting with City Council on October 26th. Staff has made some minor changes to the proposals since that time. These changes are reflected in the updated backup that you received for tonight's meeting. First, the text clarifying that tiny homes are allowed as a dwelling unit has been moved to the definition section of the code. Next, the proposal to exempt duplex, 2-unit, and 3-unit uses from the McMansion standards was put in subchapter F, where those standards are located, by actually amending subchapter F. The family home and group home uses were also deleted from the McMansion standards in subchapter F. And then there was a clarification made to substitute the substandard lot limitation for the 3-unit residential use with the requirement that the lot be at least 5,750 square feet. So we removed a reference to substandard lots and clarified the minimum lot size.
So I'm going to take this moment to mention that one of the things that I wasn't actually sure about was about the 3-unit lot, and that there is a minimum lot size, 5,750 square feet, and that was more clearly outlined after the open house meeting that I went to, and it's been shown in here as well. And so it's very clearly outlined, and it's probably, of all the things that you've seen on the list of things that this amendment will do, that is the thing that has probably the biggest impact, and it's the biggest reason why there's so much buzz about this particular amendment. So these are kind of like all the meetings that have been going on so far for this home amendment. There's the Joint Planning Commission and City Council meeting, which was on October 26th, and they had the open house for pretty much for just the average Austinite to come and really learn about this amendment and ask a million questions they'd want to. This Planning Commission meeting is, you still get to hear feedback from the people, but this is where it gets voted on, and if they make a recommendation, then it goes to the City Council, and then City Council will make a decision to move forward with the home amendment, or they might wait and they might make more changes, or it's up to them what they want to do. But that's most likely going to be the final step, if it gets accepted or denied, or if maybe there's more time is needed to work on the amendment. So based off what I've heard so far, not too much has changed. It's been more clearly outlined. The 3-unit rule will only apply for if you have a lot size of 5,750 square feet as a minimum. Otherwise, you can't have 3 units on a lot. So there was a lot of comments, and both pros and cons. It's going to take too long to share everything, but I'm going to share one of the big pros that I saw from one of the presentations that I really wanted to share. This guy does an excellent presentation about why the home amendment is really important to Austin, and I think this really summarizes most of the major points that I see as why this home amendment is such a good idea.
This first one here just shows the median family income and the related home prices that people can afford. Many of you have seen this data before, but for those that haven't, for the median income earner in Austin, you can afford a $311,000 home, according to the city's standard calculations. The stats below are median home prices for Austin and for Bastrop County. And you'll see the one there for Bastrop, which is one of our more affordable surrounding markets, $349,000. So today, the median income earner in Austin cannot afford to buy the median home in Bastrop, much less in Austin. And that will never change unless we do something about it today. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So this slide is census data from the city demographer. It shows population density. I know I'm not supposed to say the D word, density, but that's what this shows. You can't really see it on the screen there, but the two lightest colors are rural and suburban level of density, 4 to 10 people per acre. And as you can see, that covers most of the city. That is SF3 zoning in a nutshell. And for the 10th largest city in the country, that is one reason why we don't have enough housing. Next slide, please. And that's compounded by the fact that 30% of our jobs are within 3 miles of downtown. That stat's from Terry Mitchell. I'm sure he has a source for it, but so that's 200,000 jobs right there in the middle of town. And as you can see, even that area does not have enough housing beyond a suburban level of density. And you can also see this in the permit data. Next slide, please. So we assembled the ADU permits since they became legal on every lot in 2015. So this shows ADU and duplex permits by year from 2015 to date. Only 12% of new permits were for the second unit, So you can see that in the map in terms of population density. You can see that in the code here. Our code favors, and I know AIA touched on this earlier, our code favors single-family homes. And the data really shows that. So that's why this is so important. We are going to have to change our approach to housing if the average Austinite is going to be able to afford anything in the city limits. We just need more housing. Otherwise, and I've got one more slide here. Otherwise, we end up with this. This is population growth from 2010 to 2020. The blue colors are the most rapid growth over the 10 years. And you can see there's almost a circle there centered on central Austin where white is almost no growth. And I don't know how some areas of Austin didn't gain any population, but they didn't apparently. Those are the orange fields. So that blue area, that's the wave of displacement that people talk about. That is families being forced to move further and further away from Austin, from their homes, in order to find a place that will fit their family and they can afford to buy. You've heard that drive until you qualify, sort of number in the past, but that's a very real representation of it here in Austin. So everything you do tonight really, I think, is for the benefit of the folks who perhaps can't be here tonight, but who I think we really need to consider in terms of what we do as a city, because we need more affordable housing. Not every house in Austin is affordable, certainly, but we need more affordable housing in more neighborhoods, or this pattern is just going to continue. Thank you very much.
One of the things I found really interesting about this presentation was like where all the growth in Austin is coming from, and it's not really coming from inside the city limits so much. As everything is like all on the further outskirts. And if you saw from that map, everything, all the major growth is on the outside of the city, and not much growth has really occurred on the inside of the city limits, and that has mainly to do with the fact that the zoning makes it very difficult to allow for more housing inside that space. So there was also a lot of negatives. There wasn't one really great presentation that really exemplified all the negatives, but the main negatives are one to do with like nature, and there'd be a reduction of nature. There were some on the fact that this is going to be deregulating land development, and who knows what's going to happen. Are people going to take advantage of the system? That was the general thing of worry. There's also things about one of their other aspects. There's 3 parts of the resolution. There's the tiny home part, there's the taking taking away the regulation on number of unrelated adults in a household, and people were concerned that, well, now there's more families than like health and safety protocol. There's more families that should be maybe potentially could be put in a house than there should be of unrelated family members and adults. So there was concerns with that as well. So those were kind of like the three big things that I kind of got from the comments. And then overall from the comments, it was a mixed bag. I would say like half of them were like for it, half of them were against it. Most of the ones that were against it, they just didn't feel like it was very complete. Like there's just too many missing things and there's too many unknowns. And the positives were, this is a step in the right direction. And that was kind of like the overall feedback that I got from all the comments. And so I'm going to kind of skip to the end because there's a lot of people asking questions, very detailed questions, but I'm going to go to kind of the comments of what all the commissioners said and what the final vote and verdict was from this meeting. So after a lot of comments and deliberating and the commission having conversations, they had a lot of opinions about it. There's some people that are pro, some people against, and there's one person in particular that I thought did a really good job of explaining how the staff felt about this overall amendment that I'm going to show you.
I think some of the concerns and critiques that my fellow commissioner to the right has raised are valid. I think folks who know me, know the work I do in the community, know that I too share a number of concerns about the way decision making and policy making is happening in the city right now. There is, in fact, a lack of transparency, a lack of clear communication with stakeholders. And I do think that all of our policy making citywide could benefit from a lot more of that. Having said that, this small but meaningful change to the code is not something that has happened in a vacuum. It's not something that has happened out of the blue. It is something that has emerged out of a process of over a decade, longer than a decade, going back to the Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan, multiple failed attempts at a comprehensive code rewrite, and many lawsuits that have blocked us from really doing the kind of truly comprehensive approach to land use change that we need in this city. So I want to emphasize that there is still very much a need to look at the land code holistically. Home picks a small piece of that. It provides meaningful change, and that's why I support it. And I also want to thank my fellow commissioners, and particularly Commissioner Azar, who chaired the working group that put in so many hours of work and time listening to staff, talking to stakeholders, meeting with community members to try to make this as good as it can be. And so I think we all are aware that we need phase two, that so much of the meat of home will be, in fact, in phase two, and that this is far from the end of the conversation. I think there has been a tremendous amount of hyperbole in some of the language, both for and against this. I think this is meaningful, but it is not going to be a silver bullet. We need much more. But I'm happy to support this today. Thank you.
I think his comments were in a nutshell that like they have tried in the past to do a major overhaul to the development code and haven't been successful, and that's why they're doing this kind of smaller amendment, and that there's other amendments that are in the future, and this is just like a small step towards building a better land development code in general. So that was the overall feedback that I got from the committee members. So now for the final results. After the committee deliberated, they made a vote, and drumroll please. The vote was 11-2 towards the approval of this amendment. So now it is going to be passed on to the city council, and if the city council approve it, then it will be in effect. So we're gonna have to wait till December 7th to find out if city council approves this. So I'm excited to see what happens next. So as always, it's a longer video than normal, so please do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'm excited to see what the results will be, and I'll make a video shortly when I find out the results.